Ford's Tourneo Connect may have commercial roots, but it packages them in a way that practical family folk will like. Cars of this kind used to be fairly crude. This one's anything but, almost certainly bigger and more affordable than the conventional compact people carrier you might have been thinking of. Think of compact but spacious people-carrying vehicles and you'll probably think of cars like Ford's C-Max, Renault Scenic or Citroen's C4 Picasso. Increasingly though, customers looking for true practicality are often finding models like these a bit too polished, or to put it bluntly, not something you'd be happy about piling a wet dog into. It never used to be that way. The first generation versions of these cars were resolutely practical things. Today, while they still retain the space and the clever folding seats, the ambience is one of club-class travel rather than rugged versatility. That's where cars like the Ford Tourneo Connect come in. Yes, this model is based on a van. No, that needn't be an issue, unless rather pretentiously you're worried that your image might be tarnished by such a thing. Unfortunately, most buyers seem to be, which is one reason why sales of van-based MPVs are so relatively small in this country. The other is the lack of choice on offer, with only Citroen, Peugeot and Fiat actively promoting such models within their passenger car ranges, though other brands sell similar such vehicles through their commercial vehicle divisions. Ford, though, reckons it can rejuvenate this market segment, and the excellence of its second generation Transit Connect van has given the brand the perfect platform from which to do just that. This is, we're told, the perfect blend between sophistication and simplicity. But would your family really want one? Let's put this car to the test. Aren't motoring journalists pretentious? Have you ever heard one urging you to buy a van-based MPV? No, I haven't either. Most scribblers wouldn't be seen dead in a vehicle like this one. They're lost as far as I'm concerned. All you ever hear in reviews of van-based people carriers are the negatives, the vague handling, the boxy utilitarian shape and so on. But what about the positives that come with the LCV-derived approach? The high driving position, the dash-mounted gear stick that's beautifully positioned for your palm, the great door mirrors with their separate sections, the excellent glassy all-round visibility. All these things endear me to cars of this kind. In terms of the dynamics though, I must confess that I wasn't quite sure what to expect from this one. After all, you don't buy any vehicle of this sort if your priorities lie in sharp standards of ride and handling. And whatever their other virtues might be, van-based MPVs traditionally don't provide that. Or at least some of them don't. This model, though, is based on a van that, well, kind of does. I've been running a Transit Connect van on long-term tests for the last few months, and I have to tell you that it's a better, sharper and more enjoyable drive than most of the cars I test. To be fair, it ought to be, given that the underpinnings beneath are pretty much the same as those used by Ford's much lauded Focus, C-Max and Cougar models. In other words, if any car of this kind was ever going to cut the mustard in this respect, it was always going to be this one. Like any LCV-based product, it handles better fully loaded, but even when there's no one in the vehicle but you, cornering is predictable. Body roll's well controlled too, so roundabouts can be taken at speed without the Connect rolling about alarmingly. Now, after my experience with the commercial vehicle version, I was prepared for that. The changes with this passenger model, though, centre in on ride and refinement. Even bumpier roads don't faze it, and though at speed the large door mirrors do create a bit of wind noise, otherwise the cabin is impressively hushed for a car of this kind. For this second generation Tourneo Connect model, the rattly old 1.8 litre TDCi diesel has been pensioned off and a more refined and efficient 1.6 litre Duratorque TDCi diesel unit inserted in its place, offering a choice of either 95 or 115 PS outputs. It's the 95 PS power plant that will be by far the most popular of the pair, and you can see why. It's much more affordable than the pokier variant, yet the flexible 230 Newton meters of torque on offer is still enough to happily shift along a car full of people and facilitate a braked towing weight of up to 1,200 kilograms. A pity though that you only get an admittedly slick shifting 5-speed gearbox. You have to stretch to the top 115 PS power plant for the 6th speed that makes motorway cruising that bit more refined. Go for this unit and pulling power improves to 270 Newton meters. I should also point out that there are petrol options available, or at least there are if you go for this Tourneo Connect model and not its larger Grand Tourneo Connect diesel-only stablemate. Of the green pump-fueled power plants in question, there's only really one I'd suggest you consider, and it isn't the 150 PS 1.6 litre unit you'll find at the top of the range. This comes only wedded to top-spec trim and an automatic gearbox, so it's pricey both to buy and to run. Much better is the petrol engine you'll find at the least expensive end of the lineup, Ford's award-winning 1 litre T 100 PS EcoBoost unit. This actually makes quite a tempting package if you won't regularly be covering long distances or carrying heavy loads, and therefore don't really need the extra pulling power that only a diesel engine can give. This lighter 3-cylinder EcoBoost power plant also takes weight out of the front end, so the steering feels a little lighter too, though still gives you plenty of connection to what's happening under your front wheels. What's the best shape you can make any car if you want it to be practical? Yes, you're looking at it right here. It'll please you if you're one of those shopping in this market who think the very idea of trying to make a people carrier sleek and stylish is really rather silly. That's not to say that an MPV can't be smart and well turned out, of course. This one seems to be with neat, practical aesthetics that, from the front at least, won't immediately leave potential buyers searching for one of Ford's commercial vehicles brochures. Slender, swept-back headlights complete the brand's familiar kinetic design look that's characterised, as usual, by a big, bold, trapezoidal lower grille. Aesthetically, then, the stylists have done enough. This is very much a compact people carrier of its time. And one of much greater focus, not least because Ford's best-selling family hatch provides most of the underpinnings here. But I mean that primarily because, unlike its predecessor, this Tourneo Connect no longer has to try and be all things to almost all customers as Ford's van-based alternative in the compact people carrying segment. Let me explain. The old version of this car was the one-size-fits-all van-based alternative to all of Ford's more car-like compact people carriers. This design, though, can be more specific. Ford has introduced a smaller Tourneo Courier model to offer a more practical option to its B-Max MPV, leaving this car to offer the same alternative to C-Max buyers, people who might otherwise have turned to practically spacious van-based rivals like Citroen's Berlingo Multispace, Peugeot's Partner Combi and Fiat's Doblo. All of these three competitors provide 7-seat option packages, so Ford also offers a lengthened Grand Tourneo Connect version of this car for those needing 3 seating rows. Whichever body style you choose, the LCV origins are, as you'd expect, most obvious from the boxy side profile and, of course, the slab-sided rear end. But as I've said, that's all to the good when it comes to the space you can expect inside, especially in a cargo area that isn't very easy to get to if you find yourself backed into a tight parking bay. Now that's because the huge rear tailgate, as you can see, requires quite a lot of space to be left behind it before it can be raised. and there's no option to simply open the tailgate glass to get smaller bags in and out. Still, on the plus side, when it is up, you get the kind of shelter from the elements that a conventional rear hatch just can't provide. But just how much space is there back here? Well, not quite as much as you get in the direct van-based opposition. You're talking about 30% less than you'd get from a Berlingo Multispace, a Partner TP or a Doblo. But don't be put off. There's still an awful lot of room here, the 1,029 litre capacity being almost double what you could expect from the kind of Ford C-Max that, with the same engine, would cost you about 15% more. Compact car-like MPVs from other brands are equally pathetic in comparison. The low boot floor also means that chucking stuff in the back couldn't be easier, whether the item in question is a mountain bike or the family dog. There's also a deep bin on the cargo bay sidewall here, a 12-volt socket, and 4 tie-down points for awkward loads. Fold this rear bench and the news gets even better. The 2,410 litre capacity that frees up is significantly greater, 410 litres more in fact, than the total that in the same configuration you could expect from a much larger Ford S-Max in the next class up, a car that with the same engine would cost you around 40% more. The space available is even slightly more than you could expect in the same configuration from what is supposedly Ford's biggest MPV, the even more expensive Galaxy. And if you want to, you can go even further and free up even more capacity by tumbling the seats forward. Now, that's stage one. The second stage would be to take the seats out completely, but you'll need a mate to help you do that as they're pretty heavy and obviously somewhere to store them. Do that, then stick a sheet down to protect the carpet, and should you ever need it, you've got yourself a ready-made van for weekend removals. If the stuff to be carried is beyond the 1.8 metre length of the cargo area floor, there's even a folding front passenger seat too. This is, in short, a uniquely flexible family car. But then it's based on a commercial vehicle. You expected lots of room for packages. How will it fare when it comes to carrying people? Pretty well, I think. Getting into the rear, the first thing you'll notice is that the doors slide rather than open conventionally, which is totally appropriate on a car of this kind, and something you'll be thankful for when the kids are getting in and out in tight parking spaces. Slide the door back and you'll find an aperture that's the largest in the Class 2. And inside? Well, it's a bit disappointing that Ford has fitted a fixed rear bench rather than the individual sliding separate seats that rivals provide, and that this bench doesn't either slide backwards and forwards or recline for greater comfort on longer trips. Still, on the plus side, it shouldn't be too difficult to fit 3 adults back here on short to medium length journeys, and of course headroom from the boxy shape is ample, even if you're carrying loftier folk and or have fitted the optional panoramic glass roof. There's the option of a useful lidded aircraft locker style overhead storage bin up here on the roof, and there's a storage bin recessed into the floor as well, although curiously unlike rivals, Ford only gives you one of these, located directly behind the driver's seat, but useful for keeping valuables away from prying eyes. Kids, well, if they're anything like mine, they'll like the low window line that gives a very good view out, and they'll nag you into specifying a top model with seat back tables. At the wheel, it's all very car-like, though in a sensible utilitarian sort of way. The commercial vehicle origins, of course, mean that you don't get the fashionable soft-touch plastics you'd find in, say, a C-Max. But then, are these really necessary on a practical family car? What's more important is that build quality from the Spanish Valencia factory seems very strong, and the white clean surfaces provided appear tough and durable. You view a clearly presented set of familiar Ford instruments through a 4-spoke wheel that moves for both reach and for rake, and you immediately appreciate a supportive driver's seat that's 8-way adjustable on most models, making it easier to get comfortable than it would be in some competitors. Talking of comfort, I love the way that the gear stick sprouts from the bottom of the dash rather than the floor, so it falls to hand more easily. The mobile phone inspired centre console switchgear layout comes straight from the Focus and is relatively simple to use once you get used to the rather bewildering array of buttons and the fact that the infotainment screen at the top of the dash is rather small. On the positive side, the buttons are all quite large so that in colder months you can, if necessary, operate them wearing gloves. There's plenty of practicality too, though it's a pity the base model doesn't get the lockable glove box that you find further up the range. Otherwise, there's decent cubby storage for the paraphernalia of everyday family life, including reasonably sized door bins, plus 2 cup holders and a coin holder by a 12-volt socket in front of the gear stick, as well as a usefully deep bin further back where you'll find aux-in and iPod sockets. There's also a useful recessed area ahead of the front seat passenger and an equally practical overhead storage unit that I'd urge you not to use for heavier items unless you want to open up the possibility of being clonked on the head the next time you do an emergency stop. List pricing suggests that Tourneo Connect customers will be paying somewhere in the £14,000 to £19,000 bracket. If you want the larger Grand Tourneo Connect body style, there's a £2,000 model for model premium to find, with a further £240 on top of that if you want your car fitted with the extra third seating row. The 1 litre EcoBoost petrol engine is the least expensive option for Tourneo Connect customers. Most of them, though, will want to find the £500 premium that'll get them into a more flexible 95 PS 1.6 litre TDCi diesel variant that comes with the £400 option of a fuel economy pack, able to reduce your running costs by around 10%. Progress much further than that up the lineup and pricing starts to rise to a point that might defeat consideration of this car in the first place. The pokier 115 PS version of the 1.6 litre TDCi diesel doesn't come with the base trim level, so costs from around £17,000. The top 150 PS 1.6 litre automatic only petrol model, meanwhile, is going to be a very rare sight indeed, priced at around £19,000 and with running costs around 50% higher than those of its range stablemates. As for rivals, well, let me try and give you a feel for your options here. First, you could compare this model to a more conventional car-like 5-seat compact MPV, like, say, a Ford C-Max or a Citroen C4 Picasso. These kinds of people carriers are more obviously less boxy and van-like, but diesel versions of them are priced from way over the £18,000 mark. In contrast, you can, as I've said, get your family up and running with a diesel Tourneo Connect from not much more than £14,000. That's quite a difference, especially given how much more spacious this vehicle is. It's more likely, though, that you'll be comparing this car to the van-derived models Ford has directly priced it against. Those that, like this Tourneo Connect, have been properly developed for and targeted at the passenger car market. This segment has long been dominated by Citroen's Berlingo Multispace and its brand stablemate Peugeot's Partner Combi, the only really directly similar opposition coming from Fiat's Doblo. Compare like-for-like engines and spec and you'll find that all of these cars will cost you the same kind of money as you'd pay for this Ford. If, having considered all of that, you conclude that it is a Tourneo Connect that you really want, then you're going to need to know exactly how generous Ford has been with the standard spec. Well, let's see. It's a pity there's no alarm fitted, and you also have to do without roof rails at the bottom and the mid area of the range. Still, all models do get daytime running lights, body coloured bumpers, dual sliding side doors and electric front windows, plus a decent quality stereo with steering wheel controls, a DAB radio, Bluetooth and voice control. Most, though, will want to stretch up to the mid-range Z-Tech level I have here, that includes most of the nicer stuff you'll want, like air conditioning, front fog lamps, a quick clear heated windscreen, power heated mirrors, a lockable glove box, second row overhead storage, electric windows in the rear, and perhaps most importantly, the clever Ford Sync with emergency assistance setup. Now through this you can work MP3 players or Bluetooth enabled phones and access USB drives with voice commands, plus get text-to-speak messaging. Most importantly, the system automatically calls the emergency services in accidents where the airbags are triggered. Talking of airbags, twin front, side and curtain bags are all fitted as standard. Also included in the safety tally are ESC stability control and hill start assist to stop you from drifting backwards on uphill junctions. Plus there's ABS braking with electronic brake force distribution to make it more effective, and emergency brake assist that helps in panic stops that are advertised to following motorists by automatically activating hazard warning flashes. Plus there's a pedestrian-friendly bonnet, anti-whiplash head restraints and Isofix child seat mounting points on the two outer second row seats. Trailer stability control is also included if you've specified a tow bar, reducing dangerous trailer sway. If you're prepared to pay a little more, it's worth considering the clever active city stop system. Here, at urban speeds of under 20 miles an hour, a radar scans the road ahead as you drive, looking for potential collision hazards. If one is detected, the driver will get both visual and audible warnings, and the brakes will be primed. If he or she doesn't respond or isn't able to, the brakes will be applied to decrease the severity of any resulting accident. And options? Well, niceties you'll find either at the top of the range or at extra cost include things like satellite navigation, cruise control with a speed limiter, a rear view camera and static cornering lamps that turn with the car to better illuminate the bends. I'd also want the additional child observation mirror that lets you keep a better eye on what the little horrors are up to in the back, and maybe also a tow bar. So to running costs. You might think that the smallest 95 PS 1.6 litre TDCi diesel engine would deliver you the most impressive results here. Actually though, that's only true if you pay Ford another £400 for the fuel economy pack, which adds an active front grille shutter, a battery management system, smart regenerative charging and the start-stop setup that cuts the engine when you don't need it, stuck in traffic or waiting at the lights. As a result, combined cycle economy is improved from 56.5 to 61.4 miles to the gallon, and your CO2 return will be enhanced from 130 to 121 grams per kilometre. There's no economy pack option if you go for the pokier 115 PS 1.6 litre TDCi model, but thanks partly to the fact that this variant has 6 rather than 5 gears, it's already pretty frugal and clean anyway. Expect 58.9 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle and 130 grams per kilometre of CO2. Either way, you're looking at a return marginally better than that you could expect from an equivalent Citroen Berlingo Multispace or Fiat Doblo. On to the petrol variants. The 100 PS 1 litre T 3-cylinder EcoBoost engine I'm trying here seems to provide near diesel levels of cleanliness and economy, delivering 50.4 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle and 129 grams per kilometre of CO2. Whether you'd actually achieve anything like those kind of figures in day-to-day motoring is more debatable, but even if the real-world results are 10 to 15% below what Ford claims, they're still going to be very good. If, like many families, you don't cover many miles, then finding the premium to get a Tourneo Connect with TDCi diesel power may not be worthwhile. And what's certainly not worthwhile, in my view, is the prospect of shelling out for the top-of-the-range 150 PS 1.6 litre petrol variant. It comes only with automatic transmission, which is one reason why its returns are so relatively poor. 35.3 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle and 184 grams per kilometre of CO2. A gear shift indicator is provided to help owners get somewhere close to those figures on an everyday basis. Cleverer is the innovative Ford Eco Mode system that continually assesses the effects of your driving behaviour on your fuel consumption. The setup analyses your speed, your gear shifting, braking and anticipation levels, plus the number of short and long journeys you make. Smart software then advises you on how to improve fuel economy. What else? Well, there's the usual 3-year 60,000 mile warranty and insurance groupings that for the diesel 95 PS model vary between groups 6E and 7E, and on the 115 PS variant between 8E and 9E. If you opt for petrol power, you're looking at either Group 4E or Group 6E for the 1 litre EcoBoost model, or Group 11E for the 150 PS 1.6 litre automatic variant. Ford has had to strike a careful balance in developing this Tourneo Connect model. It needed to create something that took the whole van-based MPV segment a step forward, something with a bit more style and technology. Yet at the same time, it also had to create a product that wasn't so sophisticated that it would conflict with the company's more car-like B-Max, C-Max and S-Max people carriers. This MPV needed to be a touch tougher, a touch more real-world usable, yet rugged enough for owners not to have to worry or get too precious about throwing mud-encrusted dogs and children into the back. That's what we've got. Those in search of slippery styling and slush-moulded fascias should look elsewhere. But if you're not hung up on those things, I can't really see why you wouldn't be interested in the prospect of a large compact MPV for the price of a small one. Or to put it another way, if it makes more sense, something larger than C-Max sized for B-Max style money. If previously you'd never even have considered a van-based people carrier, this one's worth approaching with an open mind. Models of this sort have always specialised in offering everything you need and nothing you don't. This one, though, sugars that concept a small but significant amount, and as a result, sense and sensibility just got that little bit more desirable.